All right, let's dive right into this explainer and completely flip how you look at your product feedback. Because let's be honest, right now, your team is probably drowning in data, but still completely guessing about what your customers actually want. I mean, you've got Net Promoter Scores, Zendesk tickets, App Store reviews, and those in-app surveys popping up every 5 seconds. We are literally swimming in dashboards and AI models. Yet, when it comes time to lock in that product roadmap, we're still kind of just throwing darts in the dark. Welcome to the broken customer feedback loop. Look at this quote right here, because it hits the nail right on the head. If you just collect complaints without taking the time to reverse engineer the actual issue, well, you aren't really doing product management, are you? You're just taking fast food orders. We've started treating customer feedback like this transactional suggestion box instead of the strategic engine it's supposed to be. PMs ask users what they want. Users spit out a list of features, and teams just blindly build them. But actually listening to the voice of the customer, that has to be so much more than just a drive-through courtesy. Now, here is a massive reality check for you. Organizations that truly leverage their customer behavioral insights, they actually outperform their peers by 85% in sales growth. 85%. That's a staggering advantage identified by McKinsey, and it comes right alongside a more than 25% bump in gross margin, too. So figuring this out isn't just about giving out warm fuzzies and making people feel heard. It is about fundamentally driving your business forward and creating a totally unfair competitive advantage in your market. And honestly, the whole thing just boils down to loyalty. Users who leave feedback are 24% more likely to actually stick around and continue using your product. But here is the catch. If you ignore them, they don't just sit there quietly. They churn. They're gone. That 24% loyalty boost only holds up if you actually do something with the feedback they give you. When someone takes the time out of their day to tell you what's broken and you do absolutely nothing, you aren't just missing a chance to improve the app, you're actively shoving them out the door. So where does it go wrong? Well, when your feedback process is totally fragmented across a million tools, research notes over here, analytics there, a pile of support tickets somewhere else, you fall into this massive trap. You start just counting feedback instead of scoring it. This fragmentation creates these giant information silos. And because the data is a total mess, we just default to the path of least resistance. We react to the loudest voice in the room, and we end up creating this incoherent product that tries to please absolutely everyone, but ultimately wins nowhere. Let's break down the math on this, because it's actually pretty wild. 10 polite comments requesting some minor UI tweak mathematically do not equal the urgency of 3 furious messages from enterprise clients about a broken core workflow, right? But if you're just counting up the sheer volume of requests, that minor UI tweak wins the sprint. Why? Because, 10 is bigger than 3. But if you're scoring for actual business impact, you immediately know those 3 high-value enterprise clients need attention right now to save a vital function of your software. And let's be real, probably to save your job too. And this right here perfectly illustrates why it is so incredibly dangerous to let your users pitch solutions. Let's say they aggressively demand an export to CSV button. You might go ahead and blindly build it, totally missing the fact that your reporting dashboard is fundamentally broken. When a customer says they need a specific button, they're just diagnosing their own symptoms. You have to look past the prescribed solution to uncover the real pain point. They literally only wanted to export the data because they couldn't read it inside your app in the first place. Let's be brutally honest for a second. Take a look at your current setup. If your primary feedback process is just a Google form that routes straight into some hidden folder nobody on the team has opened since 2023, you don't have a feedback loop. You literally have a digital graveyard. Information goes in and absolutely nothing comes out. It is exactly where good intentions go to die. And trust me, your users can feel it. Okay, so how do we fix this? The first step is we have to stop doing this start and stop sporadic research. What we actually need to build is an always-on discovery engine, a living, breathing feedback system where AI handles all the heavy lifting and you own the strategy. Let the technology route, deduplicate, and summarize those massive, messy volumes of text. That frees you up to actually think critically and make the high-level strategic product decisions you were hired to make. So let's get into the how. Here is your exact 4-tactic playbook for fixing this broken loop and turning that noisy wall of text into a highly analytical, strategic engine. We're going to walk through how to reverse engineer the problem, set up an AI Insights hub, score your impact the right way, and then finally execute the absolute most important step of all, closing the loop. All right, tactic 1, you must reverse engineer the problem. We have to stop blindly building features based on what users ask for and start aggressively interrogating the signals they're sending us. Basically, you want to turn every single request into a mini case study. You need to discover the underlying job to be done. Measure how painful this issue is right now, specifically in terms of lost time and lost money. And my favorite trick? Ask them exactly what they did to solve this problem before your product even existed. Now, to do that at scale, we bring in Tactic 2. Pipe all of that fragmented data into a central AI insights hub. Look, you literally cannot sit there and manually read 10,000 support tickets. It's impossible. But if you pipe data from your survey tools, your support systems, and your product analytics into one single place, AI can auto-tag and cluster the whole shebang. It'll surface these evolving themes like onboarding confusion or billing surprises, and it'll even attach perfect, representative quotes right to those themes for you. Hold on, before we jump to the third tactic, I have a really tough question I need to ask you directly. When was the last time you actually emailed a user to tell them that you built the exact feature they requested 6 months ago? I want you to really think about that for a second. Users definitely notice when their feedback just vanishes into the void. To them, it feels like they're just shouting at a brick wall. Because here's the thing, if you aren't closing the loop, you are actively training your users to stop talking to you. Which brings us perfectly to Tactic 3, scoring impact. We need to score it on both user and business axes, instead of just tallying up volume. Once your AI clusters all that feedback, you gotta rank it. For every single item you're thinking about pulling into your roadmap, you have to be able to answer 3 things. Who cares, how much, and why now? If you can't answer those questions in one simple sentence, you're just reacting to noise. Which naturally leads us to Tactic 4, the absolute most critical step of this whole process, closing the loop with a crystal clear narrative story. Collecting and prioritizing, that's only half the job. When you finally roll out a decision, tell your users exactly what you heard. Show them what you saw in the data, explain the brutal trade-offs you had to make to get there, and connect that specific change directly back to your long-term product vision. This kind of transparency, it builds rock-solid trust. So when you put it all together, you get this ultimate formula. Centralizing your feedback, using AI to finally cut through all that noise, deeply reverse engineering those pain points, and then closing the loop. That is exactly what separates the product teams that guess from the teams that know. The difference isn't just having some magical new dashboard. It's the quality of this entire continuous cycle. When you multiply deep root cause analysis by an absolute obsessive dedication to closing the loop, the result is unstoppable product loyalty. Here is the main takeaway you absolutely need to remember. Features can be copied overnight, literally. Your competitors can rip off your UI in a heartbeat, but there is no way they can steal your relationship with your users. A tight, highly responsive customer feedback loop is an unbelievable moat. So you have to ask yourself honestly today, are you just acting like a drive-through and building what people ask for? Or are you solving the real problems they are signaling? All right, that wraps up our explainer. But before you head out, I want you to drop a comment below. What is the absolute most ridiculous, off-the-wall feature a customer has ever aggressively demanded that you build? I cannot wait to read these, so we'll see you down in the comments. Keep listening to your users and keep building.